Cristiano Ronaldo is United. He's skillful, he's the best player at United, best player in the
He could easily become the best footballer of all time.
Just watch this. It's all about Cristiano Ronaldo. No one else matters. Who's had an unbelievable season.
For me, he's the best in the world.
At just 22 years of age, Cristiano Ronaldo was already one of the greatest artists in the game. Sweeping all before him, Ronaldo had taken award after award. Over the 2 previous seasons, he'd become one of the true superstars of world football. And it was a lifestyle he was getting used to. The road to the top was never easy for this young Portuguese star, and Ronaldo has been no stranger to adversity. But a fierce ambition and a desire to be the best saw him through. Funchal, Madeira, 1985, at 10:20 a.m. on Tuesday, February the 5th, at the Hospital Cruz de Carvalho, the youngest of 4 children was born to Dolores and Dinis Aveiro. It was a premature birth, but the boy, who would go on to become the joy of a whole nation, weighed in at a healthy 8 pounds. But what to call the child? It was a slightly complicated decision for the family.
We didn't know whether it would be a boy or a girl. My sister said, if it's a boy, name him Cristiano. But I liked Ronaldo because of the American president, Ronald Reagan. That name meant something to me. I really liked it. So that's how we decided. My sister chose Cristiano and I chose Ronaldo.
Ronaldo's father was a director of a small local football club called Andorinha, and he asked the team's captain to be Ronaldo's godfather. Little did Fernão Sousa know that he would come to play an important role in Ronaldo's life, but he almost didn't make the christening.
I played for Andorinha back then, and we had a game in Ribeira Brava. With the old roads, it was about a 45-minute journey. In Madeira, non-league games start at 4 o'clock, but the christening was at 6. Denise always accompanied the team, so he and I arrived late for the christening at 6:30, almost 6:45. The priest was there waiting for us, the godfather and the father. The mother and godmother were pacing up and down outside the church. To calm the priest down, they told him the godfather would give him a big tip.
The family lived in Quinta de Falcao, which was in the parish of Santo Antonio, one of Madeira's poorer areas. But despite their situation, they were a hard-working and close-knit family. The Aveiros taught the young Ronaldo what mattered most to them: loyalty and unity. The Cristiano Ronaldo story really begins here, outside the family home. Little Cristiano already had one inseparable friend, a football. Cristiano was a small child, very thin, but showed an impressive talent for the game. Even at such a young age, his rare gift began to emerge, and Cristiano's skill with a ball began to turn heads around the neighborhood.
He was always playing up and down, up and down.
The ball never touched the ground. It touched his head, knees, shoulders, but never the ground. He could spend half a day without dropping the ball.
He used to run with weights on his feet. Why? So he could run faster. He was addicted to press-ups too. But most of all, he was modest.
Everything he did was centred around the football. All he wanted was the ball. And he had a gift for playing and doing those things he does. We knew he had a gift for playing football, but we never knew he would reach the top.
When he got home, I'd tell him to do his homework. But he used to say that he never had homework to do. I'd be making dinner, and he'd just grab a yogurt and some fruit, and he'd jump out the window and run off. He wouldn't come home until 9 o'clock at night.
I was always playing football. It was what I loved to do with my friends. The street where we played was on a slope, with buses and cars going past. We would use rocks on the streets for goalposts. When the bus came, we took them away and then put them back again to keep playing.
At the age of 6, Ronaldo took the first major step in his remarkable journey in football. He joined his first team, Clube de Futebol Andorinha.
My cousin played for the club and invited me to join, so I could see if I wanted to play for a team. That's where I started out. We practiced almost every day. I started practicing and I liked everything about it. That's where I grew up.
Ronaldo's mother had high hopes for her son.
I wanted my son to play like Luis Figo. I always thought that he was going to be a great player. I never dreamt it would happen so fast.
Word of the young Ronaldo's talent soon spread throughout Madeira.
He'd go down their left wing when they thought he'd be down the right. There was so much talk about him back then. People who knew football assured us that he had talent.
Ronaldo's godfather, Fernão Sousa, had recently transferred to Nacional de Madeira, a larger team on the island. On hearing of his godson's precocious talent, Fernão decided to see for himself. Could it be true? But when he saw Ronaldo with a ball at his feet, he couldn't believe his own eyes.
He always hogged the ball. He wanted to do everything by himself. When a player that young is so at ease with the football, you know that he has the potential to become a top player.
In 1995, he decided to take Ronaldo with him to Nacional. It was a better club and would help him grow. Ronaldo's first transfer was paid for with football kits and balls. He was only 10, but Cristiano still made his mark in his first season.
I remember him crossing the pitch, always in control of the ball, just as he does now. He crossed the entire field with that short dribble and that great turn of speed and score. He strut around, so proud of himself.
Cristiano was also making progress in training.
Playing and training were very serious things for him. All that mattered was competing and winning.
The way he faced the opposition, his courage. He didn't fear anyone, his opponents, young or old. It didn't make any difference. His goal was simply to win. He hated losing. He approached everything that way.
I always played with older players. It forced me to grow up faster and to not be afraid of playing with them.
He was so thin. I would say to my husband, one kick in the shins from those big guys he's playing against could break his leg. But my husband always used to say that he could run faster than them.
By age 11, he'd made such an impression on everyone who saw him play that he was already a star in his native Madeira. And with this first whiff of celebrity, he got his first nicknames.
He used to cry, even if his friends didn't score. He'd get upset very easily. And so people gave him nicknames. They called him Crybaby and also Little B, because no one was able to catch him on the pitch.
It was soon apparent that Nacional just wasn't big enough to handle this special talent, and Fernão's decision that Cristiano's future was on the Portuguese mainland easily followed. The godfather soon came up with a plan. Nacional owed Sporting Lisbon €22,500 but didn't have the money to pay off the debt. So President Rui Alves decided that Ronaldo would go to Sporting if Sporting forgot the debt. That was the plan. But Alves and Nacional knew that Sporting would take some persuading. There was one man in Madeira who could help thrash out a deal between the clubs. Judge Marques Freitas, a Sporting fan with a good reputation on the mainland.
Aurelio Pereira told me that for Cristiano to get to Sporting, they'd need to do a technical report. But if we got the kid to Lisbon, they could see what he would be worth. So we bought a ticket and he went to Lisbon.
Benfica also wanted him, but I preferred Sporting because that's my team. I told his godfather he's going away now so that he'll go on to become a great.
It was 1997 and Ronaldo was now 12 years old. It was decided that he would go to Sporting for a trial during the Easter break.
I was confident and excited, thinking, oh God, I'm going to Sporting for trials. I didn't sleep at all that night. I'd never even been on a plane. I went with my mother. I was very nervous, small and thin. But it was a good experience. I knew I was going to make it and show I was a good player. And I knew I would get into the team straight away, right from the very first training sessions.
The big day, 17th of April 1997, coaches Osvaldo Silva and Paulo Cardoso were there to welcome him and put him to work with older players. It wasn't long before Sporting Lisbon was dazzled by the youngster from Madeira.
We organised the trial match, and when the game began, Ronaldo soon got the ball. He went past 2-3 players. Osvaldo Silva and I looked at each other and said, here's something special. At the end, all the players gathered round him. Everyone knew here was a special player, an amazing kid.
After that trial, Ronaldo received his first technical report.
A player of unusual talent, very advanced technically, an excellent dribbler, both on the ball and off it. Sign him up.
I didn't have much experience at the time, but after that first trial, I felt something incredible. I had never seen such quality in a player.
His obvious personality and familiarity with the ball made me confident enough to write that report, along with the two other technicians, in order to persuade the Sporting management that he was worth that kind of money.
Ronaldo returned to Madeira a week later. It was now left to Aurelio Pereira to persuade Sporting's management that the kid they'd just seen was worth the money.
It was a bit strange to pay for a 12-year-old. We don't usually pay for kids of that age. But they said that that was the only way we could get him, and they promised he was exceptional.
To this day, Sporting has never paid anything near that much for another 12-year-old.
The report persuaded Simoes de Almeida, while Aurelio Pereira was so sure of Ronaldo's quality that he wrote an extra note, which proved decisive in convincing Sporting's manager to sign Ronaldo.
Although the sum seems to be absurd for a 12-year-old, it's a great investment taking into consideration the trials held by our technical team. 28th June 1997.
Another giant stride for the young Cristiano. He would return to Sporting for the beginning of the next season in August 1997. He would live at Sporting's Alvalade Training Academy. First, though, there were emotional farewells to family and friends as he prepared to face a new world alone.
I remember saying goodbye to my sisters and my mother. It was so sad. My sisters and mother were crying, but it had to be done. I remember being on the plane at the airport, surrounded by my family. And when the plane took off, tears ran down my face as I saw my brother and sisters and mother crying because of me. But that's life. It's only natural. I'd never been away from my family before. They didn't turn their backs on me. But having to live on my own, those were difficult times.
It was a new beginning for the young Ronaldo. At only 12 years old, much of his childhood still lay ahead of him without his family at hand. Living with other players at the club's training academy, the inevitable homesickness set in.
When I arrived in Lisbon, it was like people were speaking a different language. I spoke with a Madeiran accent, a bit like I still do, when I'm with my family. But it was almost like a totally different language. I arrived with my Madeiran accent, and then there were other changes. The people, the life, the stress levels, everything was different. It wasn't easy to live with people I didn't know. There were lots of them too, over 20 athletes, all older than me. Fabio and I were the youngest. At first we used to cry a lot, we were homesick. And I'd speak 2 or 3 times a week with my family. We used to buy those 50-unit phone cards. We'd call our families, and I'd look at the units clicking down while I was talking to my brothers and sisters. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was hard. I cried every day with my friends. But as time went by, things got better. The players and the directors were always there for me and gave me good advice.
Outside football, Sporting provide their athletes with an education. Leonel Pontes, a coach also from Madeira, became Ronaldo's guardian. He was chosen to look after him both on the pitch and at school.
He was
a smart kid, but he didn't like to study. His dreams and ambitions were all about football. He liked football so much that school was almost a hobby. When he did his schoolwork and homework, he was an average student, not a bad one. English was his worst subject at the time.
Once I arrived on the mainland, everything changed. Even football and friends. Not that it's necessarily right. But school becomes less important in a training centre. We think more about football instead. I wanted to finish and to complete my studies. That was always my intention. I found English very difficult. Sometimes I skipped classes. I didn't pay attention or I cheated on tests. I never thought that I'd ever need to learn English.
Lembraste muitas vezes agora.
Lembrei-me.
Agora precisavas dessa disciplina.
E até quando falo com...
But when I speak with youngsters today, I always say to them, you may not like school, but try to go as far as you can.
Mas que façam os possíveis para ir o mais longe possível.
He was never a bright student, but I remember him helping out another kid once, and we would joke, "You don't know anything, how can you help?" But he did his best to help the kid out. He's a great friend, really great.
Ele é amigo mesmo. Penso que ele é amigo. Se reparares bem aqui vai aos 70%. E aqui chega já quase aos 100%, estás a perceber? E se vês aqui, este não tem nada a ver com este.
Paulo Cardoso and Leonel Pontes became Ronaldo's coaches, friends and parents. And Ronaldo needed them as he was forced to grow up overnight. One way that Cristiano could forget his problems was to focus on his unwavering desire to become the best.
No ping-pong, no tennis,
He wanted to be the best at everything, whether it was table tennis, pool, table football, 1 against 1, or even a simple race to see who was the quickest. That was an important characteristic of his. He was so determined in everything he did. In football, his team simply had to win. And in a top-notch player, hard work is very important.
He had a dream. He really wanted to be someone.
Back in Madeira, his family followed his blossoming career. But life for Dolores was tough without her youngest child.
At first, I would still hear the door open as if he was coming home. But I got used to his absence and accepted that he was far away.
Back in Lisbon, Ronaldo's teammates became his adoptive family. He was the youngest in his group of friends, but because he was the best player, he became a natural leader.
Cristiano had a close group of friends. Although he was young, he had a strong personality and character. Even with the older kids, he had the upper hand as they respected him. I remember once when he was coming home from school, he and some friends were robbed. He was the youngest, but his older friends ran away. He fought back against the muggers, and no one robbed him. That said a lot about his personality.
As well as honing his skills on the pitch, Ronaldo also worked hard in the gym.
Once we caught him working out in the gym without any authorisation at 1 in the morning. Why? Because he always wanted to work, to achieve more.
Even in their rooms, some kids would work out every day. They saw it as a way of improving. They knew they would get better.
Although they received some money as part of his contract, Ronaldo's family continued to work hard to support him. They sent him cash and gifts whenever they could.
When Ronaldo first started at Sporting, he earned €50 a month, and that really wasn't much at the time. His friends all wore designer clothes and shoes. So his brother and sisters and I started sending him an allowance so he could buy stuff and keep out of trouble.
I remember him asking for a pair of all-star trainers. I bought them for him and sent them together with a €50 note. He was so happy.
Cristiano never forgot what his family had done for him. Later, he would be able to reciprocate their kindness.
He talked a lot about that. He was going to make his dreams come true. And my mother wouldn't need to work again. That was one of his main goals.
He was also loyal to his friends at Sporting.
One day, he came to me and he said he needed a favour. There was another young player called Semedo, who he knew we couldn't keep on, because there weren't enough beds at the training centre. But he asked me to make an effort to keep him here. He even said, he can sleep in my bed. We could put a sofa or mattress near my bed so he could stay.
I think I've always had a good heart. I don't bear any grudges, I'm happy to say. We put the beds together and the three of us slept together.
On the pitch, Ronaldo was getting better and better.
In one of the junior national championship games, I remember he received the ball from the kick-off in the second half. He saw that the goalkeeper was off his line and scored from inside his own half.
Throughout his formative years, he was always the best player in any of the tournaments he played in.
The teenage phenomenon even caught the eye of none less than Jose Mourinho, who was then the coach of União de Leiria.
I remember the first time I saw him play. He was playing for Sporting, and they were up against União de Leiria. We were watching the game because we had a training session afterwards. I told my assistant, there goes Van Basten's son. Then he was an elegant striker, with a good quality of movement and great technique. Really elegant. When he played back then, he resembled Van Basten. He played as a striker, but I didn't even know his name. But he definitely stood out from the other players.
At just 15 years of age, he was the standout player in Sporting's world-famous youth academy.
Hi, I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. I started playing for Sporting at 11. Back then we didn't have the facilities that the academy here has today. I hope more players come through the ranks here, because they've got great facilities, and I'm sure that a lot of star players are going to emerge here in the future.
By then, Ronaldo had started to play alongside the seniors in training. After a practice game against Coimbra, he even gave his first autographs. By 2002, Cristiano was appearing in Sporting's first team. Yet he didn't rest on his laurels. Once again, he went for a secret workout in the gym.
I found him in the gym and I asked him, "Ronaldo, what are you doing?" "I'm training," he said. He had two weights, one on either foot, and was dribbling with a ball. He was training his dribbles with weights because he knew that he would improve his technique and that without the weights, he would be even faster.
That same year, he played his first European game against Inter in the preliminary stages of the Champions League. Yet, as he set off for Italy, Ronaldo's mind was obviously elsewhere.
He had the sporting suit, but no smart shoes. No shoes at all. So, because we wore the same size, he asked me to lend him a pair. I lent him the pair that I'd worn at my own wedding. He wore the sporting suit and my shoes. On the return trip, Rui Jorge stole his shoes because he was the youngest in the squad. And he ended up coming back barefoot.
His final outing for Sporting was an unexpected one. It came in August 2003 as the club played a pre-season friendly to celebrate the opening of their new Alvalade stadium. The opponents were none other than Manchester United, who well knew the qualities of Cristiano Ronaldo. The day before the game, Sporting and United had signed a preliminary agreement allowing him to go to England a year later. But Ronaldo changed all that with his performance against his future club.
I remember being very nervous. I was speaking to my friend Semedo, and he said, "Tomorrow you're going to play against Manchester United. Knock them out. Play to your very best, and maybe they'll even sign you." I said, "No way."
Nah.
After his performance against us in the Sporting, we couldn't wait. We had to bring him here immediately. The minute half-time, they said, "Christ, what is this? Get this lads, get this boy signed." But they didn't know I'd already been with Sporting the night before, and we were discussed everything, you know. But he was sensational. He was really good.
On signing for United, Ronaldo wanted to wear the number 28 he'd worn at Sporting, but Sir Alex Ferguson had other ideas.
We've had some fantastic players in the number 7 jersey. Brian Robson, Eric Cantona, you know, David Beckham, as you mentioned. And I felt that a lot of people maybe wouldn't want the number 7 jersey, but I felt the confidence that Cristiano had, the confidence in his ability. It was no problem to give him number 7. And he was 18 years of age. He could develop in years to come to have his jersey. We were drawing 0-0 against Bolton, and I just felt that we needed a reaction. You know, sometimes you get it from the fans, sometimes you get it from your players. Sometimes a substitution can do that. Sometimes a half-time team talk can do that. But when we brought Ronaldo in, it just seemed to have a certain explosion in the fans, you know, that they're saying, "This is a Manchester United footballer, this is a Manchester United player." And they just took the place by storm.
When he left Sporting, Ronaldo was earning about €2,000 a month. At Manchester United, his salary shot up to $20,000 a week. With his new contract, he decided the time had come to fulfil his dearest wish. His mother, a cook, would never have to work again.
The first thing I did was tell my mother to stop working, because I knew she had suffered a lot and had some difficulties. And I also tried to help my brother and sisters out. If we can't help our family, who are we going to help? When my family isn't okay, I get restless. I don't feel right. It just doesn't seem right to me. They've always supported me. They have always been there for me.
His family came to live with him in Manchester, but it was his brother-in-law who became his right-hand man.
Football isn't for life. He knows that. In a few years' time, well, hopefully many years from now, he knows he has to have an alternative option outside of football. So in order for that to happen, Cristiano has to start preparing himself now. I can help him out with that. We work well together. He reads my mind and I know what he's thinking too. He only has to look at me and I know what's on his mind.
So with time on her hands, Dolores headed back into her Manchester kitchen to cook her son his favourite dishes.
He likes Brazilian-style cod, Portuguese stew, macaroni, beef stew with white rice.
Back in Madeira, Ronaldo was now in a position to help his whole family. He opened a clothes shop for his eldest sister, while his other sister became a singer. Katia sings under the stage name Ronalda. With her brother's help, she too is making her dream come true. At Manchester United, Ronaldo's star was rising. An icon now in Portugal, it wasn't long before his advertising potential was recognised.
In 2004, BES plastered Lisbon billboards with Ronaldo's image wearing the national team's colours, even though we didn't know if he'd be selected for the final squad. But the risk was never too great.
When I came back to Lisbon, I was passing through Marquês de Pombal, and I heard, "Oh, the star, that actor."
Euro 2004 was looming and Portugal had a new Brazilian manager, Luís Felipe Scolari. He was well used to prodigies by the name of Ronaldo, so his hopes were already high for Cristiano.
I knew Ronaldo from the Brazilian national team and Ronaldinho from there too. So I knew both those two football stars with the name Ronaldo. So I was hoping that Cristiano would also be as good, or that he had it in him to become as good one day.
Your highest stages in world football, becoming one of the players of the tournament. His impact catapulted Portugal into the final. Nothing was the same after Euro 2004 because the boy star had come of age.
Cara lavada, tenho a casa arrumada, lembrança apagada de uma vida quase deixada. Olho para o céu, mas toda a gente foi de férias. Apetece-me gritar até arrebentar as artérias. Fundo, e lembro-me da força, ar dentro do meu corpo, espero que ela ouça. Respiro fundo, e lembro-me da força, ar dentro do meu corpo, espero que ela ouça. Respiro fundo, e lembro-me da força, ar dentro do meu corpo, espero que ela ouça. Respiro fundo, e lembro-me da força, ar dentro do meu corpo, espero que ela ouça. Todo amor neste mundo perdido, num segundo todo o riso transformado no olhar apagado, toda a fúria de viver afastada do meu ser. Até que um dia acordei e vi que estava a perder toda a força que cresceu, a vida que Deus me deu, a vontade de gritar bem alto, o meu amor morreu. Todo mundo há de ouvir, todo mundo há de sentir, tenho a força de 1000 homens para o que há de vir.
Legal estar numa final.
I was in the final in Portugal. After everything that happened, after all the hype surrounding our country and the fans, it was just wonderful to be part of it all. I'll never forget it.
Moments like that, they stay with you. E claro que perder uma final da maneira que foi. Of course, I felt really disappointed losing the final in the way we did, with all those millions of people watching, hoping we could win. But that's the way it went. I cried.
Pronto, foi aquilo que aconteceu, deu-me para chorar.
The following year, Cristiano suffered greater heartache. His father died on September the 6th.
It was like our world had fallen in on us. It's the same old story. When you have a tight-knit family, and when things go well, we think that we're indestructible, that bad things will only happen to others. Even though life was always hard for us, we always survived. But with death, there's nothing you can do.
Ronaldo was everything to him. He was so proud. And Ronaldo did everything he could to help him. But all the money in the world couldn't change a thing. He couldn't help my father. He asked, "What good is all my money?" He said, "We should make the most of life. Enjoy it, because that's the way it is."
At the time, Cristiano was on international duty in Russia, preparing for a crucial World Cup qualifier. Scolari received the news and had the difficult task of informing his young star.
A morte do pai do Cristiano lembrou a morte do meu.
The death of his father reminded me of the death of my own father. We talked for a while, and Ronaldo was able to calm down a little bit. He obviously wasn't at peace with what had happened, but he was more relaxed. We shared the same grief, and because we had that between us, we also shared the next moment. I asked him whether he wanted to play or not, and he decided to stay with us. These are the moments that football gives us. It's something wonderful. There are difficult times, followed by unforgettable moments. And they generally come from decisions like that.
He knew that I was going to make it as a footballer. He was a very proud man. He knew better than anyone else what I was capable of. He knew he had a son who was always going to give the best example, who would show what he was worth.